shit. Poof. Hello. Nice to see you, chat. I'm excited. What's new? What do you guys got today?
Thank you.
Good news? I ate Thai food yesterday and it was pretty good, but it kind of kicked things around south of the border. But it was pretty good still. What did I order? Man, Chinese broccoli? Nah. I got crispy pork belly, spicy with Chinese broccoli, and I got curry. The curry was great. The flavor of the sauce on the pork belly and everything was great, but Chinese broccoli sucks. Man, I hope Tekken 8 never comes out.
So
Damn, get parried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Turian-owned businesses. Soda free for 6 months? Thanks for the luck? What do you mean? How do you get soda free for the next 6 months? And what are you gonna do with all that soda? Oh shit. So hold on. The guy named Turian-owned businesses said, soda free for 6 months. Thanks for the luck. And I'm thinking, wow, he must have won some kind of free soda for 6 months competition. I mean, what the fuck is he saying, right? Turns out this ESL moron meant to say that he quit drinking soda for 6 months. I mean, what do you need luck for that, dude? Just fucking stop drinking soda, fatso. Drink some water. He's thanking me for luck. I thought he won a free soda giveaway. That's a sweet deal. 6 months for free? That's a sweet deal. What are you gonna do with all that soda?
Thank you.
That's pretty funny. Because I'm over here like, hey, congrats. What are you gonna do with all that soda? And he's trying to tell me that he quit drinking soda. Man, soda is addictive. 8 minutes. Ooh. I hope he winks a lot. One of these days, it's not gonna be him and everyone's gonna boo. I remember I went to see Amon Amarth one time live, and the bassist for the band was not there. It was just some other fucking guy. And we were all booing and like, well, we were all like, me and my friend, and we're booing. Where's Ted? You know, we were like booing, and then when the show started, after the first song, he started talking, and he was like, Ted can't be here because he's having his first kid. And everyone in the crowd was yaying, and me and my friend were, boo! Fuck that! People around us were also like getting influenced. We started the boo movement. That's a bad excuse. I don't give a fuck. Man, we must have been like, I don't even know, 19? 30 years ago. Hey man, what are you adding 10 years for, dude? I did Lightning Arrow last league. It ruins the game. It really does. It really does. If you make a really good Lightning Arrow character with a headhunter, that's what I did last league. It totally ruins the game. It makes every other build feel like, what's the point? You have to pretend like you're playing a different game. It really is just way too good. That's just how I feel. I played Lightning Arrow and then switched to Tornado Shot.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thanks for joining us for today's Path of Exile live stream.
Man, this
We
is
have a packed
intimate.
show today with announcements for Path of Exile 2, as well as the exclusive unveiling of Path of Exile Affliction.
Shirts
which launches
unbuttoned on the
December 8th
bottom.
on PC and Mac, and on December 13th on console.
Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so make sure you follow
Not
the
here.
instructions below in order to claim your Huntsman wings. We'll start with Path of Exile 2, where Jonathan will walk you through our latest announcements.
Thank you.
Mark will then take
Who?
you on a deep dive into the new Path of Exile Affliction Challenge League,
Mark?
which
Jonathan?
launches in 1 week.
Where's Ted?
He'll cover the league mechanics, its rewards, some new content we're adding to the core Path of Exile experience, and some large metagame changes. I'll then show you our annual core supporter packs, and we'll head into our live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask us your questions from Twitch chat. After the live stream, we'll drop the full patch notes.
Nice.
I'd like to hand over to Jonathan Rogers, Game Director of Path of
That's
Exile
cool.
2.
Hey guys, it's been a few months since we introduced you to
Oh
the
yeah, I
genre of
remember
Path of
you.
Exile 2. But one of the things that we're really focusing on now is how varied each
Purple
of the classes
socks?
play.
I don't know if I like him.
Starts
Do you
around
see the
with
purple socks?
Enemy to enemy, building and unleashing combos. If he doesn't stay in combat, he loses momentum and has to build it up again.
Ah, excuse me. Whoa. Whoa,
The
that was
warrior,
weird.
on the other hand, is like a slow but unstoppable freight train. A warrior commits to big attacks and relies on stunning his enemies to stay safe in the thick of combat. When an
Man,
opening
that
presents
is
itself,
slow.
the warrior can use even larger attacks to demolish his enemies.
Huh. Slow as
The
fuck.
hunter seamlessly moves from melee to ranged combat and back. The true damage potential of the
guy's
hunter
build
only
sucks.
unlocks when you learn to combine ranged and melee abilities together. And then there are the spellcasters. The sorceress is a pure caster who much prefers
Whoa.
to stay at range and drop powerful spells on her foes.
Whoa,
If
that
she
was
finds
pretty
herself
good.
surrounded by enemies,
That was pretty
she'd rather
cool.
use an ability to escape than to take them on directly.
Thank you.
That was pretty cool.
The druid is also a spellcaster, but unlike the sorceress, he uses his spells as a means to support his melee abilities. And by melee abilities, we mean he can turn into a giant animal and rip his enemies to pieces.
Weird. Wha-
Each of these classes
That was like
is
an
extremely
environment.
different to play, but we want to go even further. It's time to check out the Mercenary.
Oh, this is a
Not
class?
job out there I won't take, so long as the pay's good and a crossbow can solve it.
Oh, he's got guns. He's got a shotgun. Weird. And he can move. And aim. What the?
I'll take them all down, one bolt at a time.
When thinking about each new class, we really try to think about how we can make combat feel different from all the others. For the Mercenary, that difference is the crossbow. The crossbow is fundamentally different than a regular bow because it fires instantly instead of needing to be drawn back. This means that you need immediate feedback. Clicking the fire button should make the character shoot instantly, just like in a shooter. As soon as we experience that, we realize that there are a lot of design lessons to learn from shooters, and so we fully embrace them. In Path of Exile 2, we have crossbows that work like sniper rifles, shotguns, and assault rifles.
Say word? You can craft them?
But in order to really get shooter-like gameplay, we wanted to go further. In Path of Exile 2, we now support WASD movement. You can now walk around in any direction independent of aiming. In fact, if this is your preferred method of gameplay, you can use it on any class, regardless of what weapon type you're using.
That's pretty
You can
crazy,
change
dude.
between click to move or WASD at any time.
Whoa.
You can only hold 2 crossbows at a time, but Path of Exile 2 is all about interesting combinations of abilities, and this is where ammo skills come in. This is a burst shot crossbow, and right now I have armor piercing ammo equipped, which makes it very effective
Ammo?
at facing a group of enemies, since it pierces right through.
Bloody horrors!
But there are other ammos too. For a bigger single target, it might be a good idea to switch to Incendiary. The more projectiles hit the target, the stronger
Damn,
they
Judge
ignite.
Dredd
So you
build?
want to get up nice, close and personal with this one.
Judge Dredd.
If you have a bunch of targets running at you, you might want to slow them down. In this case, you could switch to Permafrost Burst Shot.
Are you
Shooting
kidding?
a bunch of smaller enemies at range will
That
chill them,
seems pretty
potentially even
cool.
freeze them in place. Once you have some frozen enemies though, you can switch back to Armor Piercing. Shooting a frozen enemy with Armor
Love
Piercing
your
Burst
stream.
Shot will explode the
Hey,
ice, doing a
thanks.
huge amount of damage to all nearby enemies.
Cool.
Another feature crossbows have is attachments. This is a grenade launcher. As you
What?
can see, when I equip it, it appears on the underside of the crossbow. These attachments are just
Oh,
like skill
but no
gems, so you
quiver.
effectively get extra skill slots, and you can augment these with support gems, just like regular skills.
No quiver.
Fire in the hole!
These grenades take a while to explode, so it's a good idea to pair them with some kind of crowd control, like Permafrost Burst Shot.
Damn, this looks pretty cool. Look at the staircase. The elevation.
We have other grenades too though. This attachment is a flash grenade. It does barely any damage, but it does a huge amount of stun. It can be a great opener before you run into combat.
Weird. This is such a different concept. I mean, these enemies are alive for so long. It's not like Path of Exile at all.
Now, here's another attachment, an oil grenade. Firing one of these grenades coats the ground and nearby enemies in oil. Oil slows enemies down, so it's another
The
useful
ground
crowd control
and nearby
mechanic.
enemies.
Now, another thing that oil can do is be set on fire. Any burning enemy or explosion will ignite the oil, causing extra burning damage.
Looks cool.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, guys.
One of the
I'll thank
problems
all
with
of you.
burst shot crossbows is that each pellet doesn't do much damage individually. This means
Thanks.
that if enemies have
Thanks,
armor,
Batman.
then it will be very effective preventing that damage. But thankfully, you can equip an additional crossbow in your second weapon set to deal with the weaknesses of your primary weapon. This is a rapid shot crossbow. Rapid shot is great for closing on enemies because you can shoot while running. In Path of Exile 2, we now have the ability to allow you to use some skills while moving. Being able to create skills like this opens up a lot of new design space and allows us to really increase the pace of combat.
That's crazy. I wonder if movement speed, how does that work? The more movement speed you have, the faster you move? Is it like 50% while you're shooting? Like while channeling?
The armor-piercing version of Rapid Shot slowly erodes a monster's armor. Once the armor is fully broken, you can easily switch back to Burst Shot to deal much more damage.
Thank you.
Being able to run while shooting with Rapid Shot is also great for when you want to perform a fighting retreat.
Retreat. You don't retreat in
Using
Path of
permafrost
Exile.
ammo with Rapid Shot is also useful if you need to retreat. When you shoot the ground, it creates ice
What?
crystals. If you draw monsters back over these crystals, they explode, killing the monsters. It's great if you want to set up a safe zone before pulling the next pack.
That's crazy. Like, this type of stuff would be useless at full speed, so it's not
Throwing
like...
enemies down can come in handy
this
if you
is
want
slowed
to use the
down
incendiary
gameplay.
version of Rapid Shot. Using this skill requires that you charge up a little bit before it fires, but as it continues to heat up, it will do more and more damage.
Weird. Wow, cool. Look at the effect on the crossbow. Looks good.
It has a really large clip size, so you can just keep firing and firing with it. But the other really useful feature is that when the crossbow is heated up, it adds extra fire damage to any grenade that you launch.
Heat it up. Grenades. I wonder if you take damage from that. No way. He missed with it, by the way. Pretty good.
Now I've been
yeah.
using explosive grenades here, but
Portal
it'll work
scroll.
equally as well with flash or oil grenades too. If you use it with oil grenades, the oil will catch fire immediately.
This type of gameplay is going to be so much better on pad because you don't have to aim with a mouse. You just point and shoot. You don't. It's just going to auto target. It's kind of why Spectral Shield Throw is so much better on a pad than mouse.
Another crossbow type that you can find is Power Shot. This one works just like a classic sniper rifle. Use it with armor-piercing ammo and it will penetrate armor on targets. So it's a good idea to use when something's really tough.
The backtracking
Now,
is
this skill
really
has another
interesting.
interaction with armor break. If an enemy has its armor broken,
running
then your Power
backwards
Shot
like
hits a weak
crazy.
spot and does a huge amount of single target damage, with a bunch of extra stun for good measure.
The other chat room is Zing. There are a lot of Z's.
Now, the incendiary version of Power Shot is more like a rocket launcher.
They're saying
It does
Z.
a big explosive blast out of
Log out. God. Chat rooms really turn humans into subhumans. They're right, though.
One of the really useful features of this version is that you can explode any
Where's
grenades that happen to
Ted?
be on the ground.
Ted Wilson.
This combo also works really well with Incendiary Rapid Shot. I'm going to charge up the heat on my crossbow, shoot out a bunch of grenades, and then start the fireworks with a power shot.
Pretty funny. Like 1,000 people saying it's no good, and one guy's like, it looks great. He stands out like crazy, dude. One guy.
The ice version of power shot creates frost walls at a distance. This is great for crowd controlling monsters in tight passages. The wall segments have other uses too. If they get destroyed by
the thing is, if this is a slow version of something that will be fast later, don't you think a lot of these mechanics would be pointless? Like putting oil on the ground, or putting a wall, or leaving mines behind you? Like, it doesn't really seem like it's gonna get that much faster than this.
Enemies we did earlier?
Because it would look kind of weird, wouldn't it? And it would be pointless. But you never know.
Now
just based on what I'm seeing.
With ice walls, then shoot them with armor-piercing burst shot for a huge amount of damage.
It looks fun. Just doesn't look like there are a lot of enemies.
Alright, it's time to face the boss for this area. Let's see how we fare against her with all the skills I've shown you so far.
Hey, this looks tight, Smile.
Whoa. She's fat. Orsia the matron. Fat lady with her titties out. And she's on fire. Whoa. Yeah, she walked right through the ice wall. Is she taking, like, visual damage? Maybe she was just on fire. Oh, that's a baby? Unwanted is the baby? Unwanted. Now she's pissed. Oh, this guy's gonna lose on his own trailer. She just walks through that shit, man. Nice ice wall, scrub. Is he like reloading magazines or something? That sounds annoying.
What is going on in this godforsaken city? Thank you.
And that's the Mercenary. It feels totally different than anything
No
I've
loot.
done before.
Where's the
Shows
loot?
The range of what's possible in Path of Exile 2.
Nice loot. Yeah, alright. Next.
We're going to be showing off a lot more about Path of Exile 2 as we approach
Purple
its beta.
socks.
But in the meantime, we've got a Path of Exile 1 expansion coming out next week. I'm going to hand over to Mark, also known as Neon, to show you what's in store.
Hand it
Here we
over.
want.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well, let's just go ahead and get straight on into it. Here's the trailer for Path of Exile Affliction.
Shh.
Something
Neon.
moves in the mists.
Shh.
Something sinister. Thorn. Rot. Plague. And claw. The affliction spreads. It hungers for more. Tread lightly in the Wildwood, which shifts and fights. Accept our
What the hell's
hug,
going on?
the
Whoa.
ancient power of the Asmiri.
Whoa. That was hype.
Beware the spirits that yearn for freedom. And the heart of evil that waits in the dark.
What is that? Ascendancies? Wildwood Ascendancies? What?
Ready yourself. I will be waiting.
Oh, he's gonna be talking shit again. Why is it on the left side like that? What am I looking at on the right side? What is that on the right side? That's taking up half the screen. Seems significant.
In the Affliction League, you will encounter sacred wisps, which beckon you to enter overgrown passageways that lead to the Viridian Wildwood.
The what?
A vile affliction has covered this forest with a foreboding darkness. You'll need to uncover the forest mysteries to put a stop to the source of the affliction.
Damn, totally dark.
As you approach the darkness, the wisps burn away its affliction. Make sure you tread carefully, because they only have a limited amount of power. But be warned, the darkness is full of cursed monsters that emerge to kill you. As you explore, you might see other types of wisps trapped inside the darkness. The Wildwood is trying to guide you towards clues about its affliction. Follow the trails of wisps by collecting them, and you may uncover many different secrets. New characters to find, shrines, boss battles, and all kinds of new encounters are lurking in the forest just waiting for you to discover them. There are many rewards to earn for those brave enough to seek them. When the sacred wisps run out of energy, they'll return you back to where you came from.
You run out of juice.
Any other types of wisps you have collected will return with you to Rayclast. These wisps, having been saved from the affliction, disperse into the environment and inhabit randomly chosen monsters in the area, increasing their power and also their rewards.
Ooh!
The different types of wisps have different effects on monsters.
Ooh!
And sometimes more than one type will inhabit a single monster, making the fight even harder and even more important. If this happens to a boss, you could be in for a tough fight. But if you can overcome it, your efforts will not be in vain.
Overcome it.
Primal wisps grant an item rarity bonus to inhabited monsters.
Ooh.
Wild wisps grant an item quantity bonus, and vivid wisps cause them to drop currency items. If a monster gets all three types, they'll drop more items of a higher rarity and a lot of currency. While exploring the Wildwood, you might find some of the last few Asmeri wanderers who have managed to survive in the forest since it was cursed.
I'll give it up.
Each of them have different survival specializations, and they are willing to teach you if you agree to help them defeat the source of the affliction, the King in the Mists. Choose which of the Asmeri that you will complete quests for to unlock one of 3 new Ascendancy classes, which you can have in addition to your regular Ascendancy
In addition?
Up to 8 points for these classes are unlocked as you complete more quests for the Asmeri you are training under. The Warden of Eves can teach you to become a Warden of the Magi, a powerful class that takes advantage of wilderness knowledge. A Warden of the Magi can learn to use tinctures which coat their weapon, granting various powerful effects.
Tinctures?
You can equip tinctures in your flask slots and toggle them on and off at will.
You buff
You
your
can only have
weapon
one
with the
enabled at a
flask
time,
slot.
but the effects are quite conditional, so you may want to have more than one equipped and swap between them during combat.
Honey Blade, Nacho Blade.
For example, equip the Ironwood Tincture to gain the benefit of always stunning enemies on full life. Tinctures can also get random mods. This one in particular adds stacks of wither to targets on full life and steals frenzy charges on hit, which makes it great as an initiator. When you are fighting rare monsters or finishing off tough bosses, you will want to swap to the Oak Branch Tincture, which grants Culling Strike, increased damage against enemies on full life,
Culling
and a chance to
Strike.
steal a mod from rare enemies you kill. You can buy more tinctures from the Warden of Eves using Primal Wisps when you find her in the forest, so keep an eye out for her. As a Warden of the Magi gains more Ascendancy points, they gain access to more skills that let them further specialize in tinctures. For example, Nature's Concoction allows you to invest in having your tinctures enhance your flasks. This Ascendancy skill makes it important to think about which slots your tinctures are placed in, and what flasks they are adjacent to. You'll have better uptime on those flasks and they'll be stronger as a result. But there are plenty more skills to choose even if you don't want to engage with tinctures. For example, another new ability to unlock is Bark Skin. It's a reservation skill that causes bark to grow all over your body, increasing armor.
Oh.
As you take damage, the bark falls off, increasing your evasion.
What? What?
Over time, the bark will grow back, removing the evasion bonus but increasing your armor again.
Say word?
The Breaker of Oaths can teach you to become a Warlock of the Mists, an Ascendancy class
Tree
specializing
build.
in the darker arts of the Asmeri.
Shh.
One powerful ability you can choose is Blood Hunt, which grants an active skill called Ravenous. This skill lets you see what type a monster is under its life bar, whether it is a demon, beast,
What?
undead, construct, or humanoid. Consuming a corpse with this skill gives a buff to damage against that type of monster, and reduces damage taken by it. You can only have one type active at a time, so it's a good idea to choose wisely for the area that you are in. Some bosses like the Maven
that shit
are
random?
in nature and don't conform to the regular corpses that you have access to, but don't worry. The Breaker of Oaths has a shop where you can trade wild wisps for corpses that you can place on the ground wherever you are.
What?
Buy an Eldritch Corpse and you will be able to get the bonus while fighting Eldritch entities like the Maven. You may notice that most of the corpses he sells are not monsters you normally encounter.
You buy corpses?
You might want to try turning some of these corpses into specters, to take advantage of some of the unique abilities that these monsters have.
That's a cool idea, I guess. Damn, so you just have minions with you?
The Warlock of the Mists gets access to many other
New
abilities.
minions.
For example, there is a trio of curses that you can pick from. One of these curses targets your minions, giving them life degen and making them explode for massive damage when they are near death.
Okay.
One of them prevents enemies from dealing damage for the latter portion of its duration, which is quite powerful against bosses. This curse creates the interesting build decision of whether or not you should increase curse duration or reduce it. The final curse is a mark that causes enemy phantasms to be spawned when you hit the marked enemy. These phantasms aren't on your side, so they work well with on-hit and on-kill trigger effects, for example.
Thank you.
The Primal Huntress can teach you to become a Wildwood Primalist. Unlike the other new Ascendancies, the Primal Huntress lets you customize your tree.
More?
You do this with charms that you can buy from the Primal Huntress for Vivid Wisps. Charms have randomly generated mods which give stats from regular Ascendancy classes.
What?
Allowing you to create your own hybrid Ascendancy class.
Oh my god. What the
Charms
fuck?
are magic items that are aligned with different attributes. So for example, this Ursine charm is strength aligned and has gotten the melee hits have a chance to
But you only
fortify
picked
stats
one
from
of
champion,
these ascendancies.
and the ability to stop your movement speed going below base from the Juggernaut.
What?
This interline Corvine charm lets you get the stat that makes your consecrated ground effects linger from the Inquisitor.
Oh my god.
And the effect that makes cursed enemies explode from the Occultist.
That's crazy.
Some of the combination of mods that you might find for
That
sale on
is
charms can be
fucking
extremely
crazy.
powerful. So keep a lookout for the Primal Huntress's shop, even if you are not playing as a Primalist. As a Primalist, you
the
also
fuck?
get access to a few other interesting abilities. Use Warcries next to corpses and they have a chance to drop an extra item.
Oh my god! You are fucking kidding me, dude.
The Primalist also gets access
Get
to
the
a small
fuck out of here.
just in case you find yourself needing to cart more items to town during your map runs.
That was tight. And
If you
that
are
is
unhappy with the
tight.
class you picked, or you just happen to find a really great item for another one of the classes, you are able to change which class you are using next time you find one of the Asmeri Wanderers. Just remember that you will have to do their quests in order to gain the Ascendancy points for that class.
Huh.
These quests will lead you towards the ultimate goal of the Asmeri: finding the King in the Mists, defeating him, and cleansing the forest of its affliction once and for all.
Find item is
There are
super
new
high.
uniques to find, rewards to claim, and new Ascendancy classes to master in the Affliction League. Now that we've covered what's in the League, let's talk about some of the changes you can expect to the core game in 3.23. For a start, Ultimatum is finally going core. When talking to players at ExileCon, it was the #1 feature that people requested. When playing through in-game maps, you may sometimes encounter the Trial Master, who offers you a choice to undertake a Deadly Vow trial in exchange for great rewards. If you defeat the trial, he offers to go double or nothing with you. Do you take the risk and go for an even better reward? Or do you take the winnings you have already earned off the table and go home? We've done a full rebalance of Ultimatum and have added many new mods and rewards, including both new and reworked uniques.
Wow.
The base number of rounds for an Ultimatum trial is now always 10, with a chance to spawn the Trial Master boss fight on
Maximum
the 10th round, if you're able to
quality
make it
is
that far.
200%.
As part of 323, we have also removed Metamorph from the game.
Did you read that line?
All the Catalyst rewards from Metamorph have now been moved to be rewards for Ultimatum.
What?
We have also added a new Val-themed Catalyst that works on corrupted items.
Wow.
As normal for most content that gets added to endgame, we have introduced new Ultimatum passive skills to the Atlas tree. One great example is the Keystone Grueling Gauntlet. It makes Ultimatums last 3 extra rounds, but you cannot choose the modifiers, and it prevents the final Trial Master boss fight from spawning. The level of challenge becomes extreme during the last 3 rounds, and not being able to choose the modifiers makes it even harder. But the rewards are insane, and for those with very high-end characters, it might be a bet worth making.
Insane.
There are lots of other Atlas passive skills you can pick from for Ultimatum, so choose one.
Woo! 3
Now, It's time
divines.
to talk about one of the largest metagame changes we've ever made. There were 3 systems in Path of Exile that were all trying to subtly modify the behavior.
I'm praying.
These were alternate quality gems, Labyrinth Helmet enchants, and unique threshold jewels. We've combined all of these together to create a new system called Transfigured Gems that allows us to fully achieve the goal of these 3 systems and then some.
Transfigured gems are alternative versions of existing skill gems that have different functionality and balance from their regular versions. We have added a huge number of these with interesting variations that drastically change how existing skills play. For example, Frostbomb of Instability. It changes it from a cooldown skill that you can cast occasionally for a large explosion into a skill that you can cast continuously, that deals less damage and doesn't apply cold exposure. It changes the role of Frostbomb from a utility skill into a main damaging skill.
Whoa.
Another example is Detonate Dead of Scavenging.
What?
You can't use it on corpses that were created by Desecrate or Unearth, but in exchange it does a whole lot more damage. You won't be able to use it as your main reliable source of damage, but it's a great skill to use as a 4-link utility to get some extreme burst damage. Raise Zombie of Falling.
What?
Instead of raising a zombie from a corpse, you summon them from mid-air. They fall to their death dealing
Mid-air?
While this sounds like a physical damage version of Firestorm, you should consider that it scales with minion damage and also triggers on-death minion effects. Blight of Contagion.
Cool.
This version of Blight is now spread by Contagion, so you can use it as part of your Essence Drain build. We have a huge number of these.
Sleeping Faith.
Transfigure Firestorm into Firestorm with Meteors, Transfigure Blade Trap into Blade Trap of Great Swords,
pretty cool.
Transfigure Barrage into Barrage of Volley Fire, and so on. There is a lot to experiment with, and we look forward to seeing what builds you can come up with. But how do you get Transfigured Gems?
Oh my
The
god.
Divine Font at the end of the Eternal Labyrinth has been changed to a gem crafting device that can
What?
modify your skill and support gems in a lot of new ways.
Thank you.
One of the options you can now choose is to turn a skill gem into one of 3 Transfigured Gems. But that isn't all the Divine Font can do. It has a lot of other gem crafting options you can use. For example, you can add quality to gems, add experience to gems,
Wow.
sacrifice a gem for 1 or more treasure keys to open Azara's chests, and you can even exchange support gems for exceptional support gems
Whoa.
like Power or Enlighten.
That's awesome.
These
No
are
more
some of the
heist.
options you'll find the Divine Font is now capable of. In order to replace the rewards in Heist that previously gave alternate quality gems, we have done a rebalance of the rewards of Heist as well. Experimented base types have been rebalanced. New replica uniques have been added and old ones changed, and we have increased the amount of currency from display cases as well. On top of this, we have gone through and buffed the quality stats on most damage dealing skills. In most
Hoo-wee!
cases, they will be significantly more powerful than before, and also more interesting.
Tornado shot.
Overall, this is one of the largest metagame shifts that we've ever done. There are so many crazy new skill
Ever
combinations to
done.
plan around, so we expect to see some really interesting new builds. Next up, I'd like to hand back over to Chris to talk
That's
about the
crazy.
new supporter packs.
At this point, we'd usually talk about the League supporter packs. We're doing things a bit differently this year. Rather than releasing League supporter packs today and then our annual core packs 2 weeks later, we've combined it all together into a strong set of core supporter packs that will be released alongside Path of Exile Affliction next week. The series contains 5
What the-
packs, each with its own value points
What
and
the
a collection
fuck
of
was
exclusive
that?
cosmetic microtransactions.
What the fuck was that?
Physical merchandise. We'll unveil the full details of each of the packs
Dude!
next week.
That's pretty
Here's a
sweet.
sneak peek of some of their exclusive cosmetic microtransactions.
Surfboard?
These packs will be available for purchase when Path of Exile Affliction launches on the 8th of
Pretty
December.
sweet.
Thank you so much for your ongoing support.
Whoa. What the fuck is that?
We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. Afterwards, we'll post Path of Exile Affliction's full patch notes. With the release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you'll need for Affliction's release. Keep an eye on the news. On release
Man,
weekend,
that's
expect to launch the
insane.
new mystery box and this season's Curious Vault Pass.
There's so much stuff.
Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest
3
events.
Ascendancies
We're
on
looking
top
forward
of
to
your
exploring the
Ascendancies?
Viridian Wildwood with you next week. We'll begin the Q&A.
They didn't
shortly,
mention
so
anything
please be
about
prepared.
actual Labyrinth, though. What about Lab Enchants? Right? Did I miss that? They don't even have enchants anymore for any helmets? React harder if you dare. Didn't I yell? I got hype. They took out all lab enchants. Are you serious? Thank God, dude. Get them out. If you dare, big dog. They're being combined with the gem thing. Thank God for Sentinel. What about that part? Like you can buff enemies in the map like Sentinel. Shh.
G'day, ZD here, folks. Exiles, welcome for a giant jam-packed Q&A after a huge reveal session. We have here today Chris,
Big
Jonathan,
dog.
and Mark. 3 for the price of 1 this time around, not just Chris. Welcome, folks.
Thank you
Very much, yeah.
Cheers.
Excellent, folks. We're going to be moving through things in rough order that we saw things today during the reveal. So
Hey,
starting
thanks.
with Path of Exile 2 and then moving through some of the new Path
Oh,
of
thank
Exile
all of
1
you.
features. So get those questions in through Twitch chat.
Just be
We'll
patient.
sprinkle those in through each of those various sections. So first, let's talk about that new movement scheme that was revealed with the new Mercenary class. So we have the new WASD movement. And does this alternate control scheme work with
Uh-oh,
other
Chris
classes
is
and
pissed.
builds, or is it mainly intended for like this shooter mercenary style?
So when we put it in, I was totally thinking that it was going to be something that you'd want to use with ranged characters way more. But actually, when I tried out some melee stuff, I was pretty sold on it, actually. It was better than I was expecting. There's still a few tweaks to do to make that perfect internally, but like, yeah, it's pretty
He's
awesome.
not winking because he's pissed.
So I think I'm probably, I think I'm going to be playing that way myself, actually, even though I was a bit of a skeptic at first of WASD for melee. I think it is good, but we want to make sure that everyone understands that you can change from one to the other whenever you want. It's just one of those things that, like some people may prefer it, some people may not. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. WASD rather feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. Like, I've, die-hard action RPG, Diablo 2 era kind of guy myself. But for some reason, the WASD stuff just feels really natural to play. I guess it's, background in Crimson Land and that kind of thing.
Yeah. That first moment you use it, it's a
Who
little
cares?
bit jarring because W is now not a skill. But once you can get beyond that, it is like very, very fun to play.
It is actually funny going I went loaded up the PoE 1 client again recently, and I was immediately pressing WASD like, oh shit.
Yeah. Keep doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also keep trying to dodge roll as well.
Yeah, so yeah.
Hey, careful how you talk about Chris. He'll ban
ask
you.
it then, can
That guy never got unbanned, right?
one, or is it exclusively a PoE 2 feature?
The guy who tried talking shit
It's
to
probably gonna be
Chris.
pretty hard to add it to PoE 1, and the reason would be because the number of animations you need.
Good
to
riddance, Rip Bozo.
Movement like that is really high, and the rigs in PoE 1 are so old. That it would be really, really difficult to add. So I think it's probably quite unlikely. And just in general, the animation stuff that we're doing in PoE 2, it's just a different level. So it was okay, I'm not going to say easy, but it was easier.
He ended up working at McDonald's.
Than it would have been in PoE 1.
How do you know that? It sounds made up.
It's going to be PoE 2 only.
How have you found hotkey usage and things like that while moving around?
He went to McDonald's.
So basically,
and he was there?
It's definitely a thing. But what personally what I found is that so you've got,
Oh,
you've got the
shit.
left click freed up, to put a skill on. So you've kind of got you can have sort of 3 major skills on mouse. And
Damn.
then having other stuff on the keyboard.
Shouldn't have said that.
Because the stuff that I put on the keyboard at least tends to be the sort of more rarely used stuff.
You guys see
still,
him?
Commonly
lost him.
used, but
Hey,
still a bit rarer.
thanks.
And so it wasn't too bad. I found it
Thanks,
okay.
Path
It is a
of
concern, for sure. I
McDonald's.
suspect that like there might be a few
McDonald's.
builds that would be a bit harder to do that
Not
way,
quite, but
it's a
close.
control scheme if you want, but it's working really well for what we're
Close.
doing
And how well does this translate to controllers then? You would think it'd be perfect for twin sticks.
there. It is. So we have also implemented so that the right stick you can use to aim which direction that you're going in on controller, and it does work well there. There's like a bunch of other controller stuff that we've kind of been fiddling around with, trying to get that better. It definitely does help in that direction as well. Plus, it just kind of makes movement. Like, there's actually stuff even with click to move that we can use. Like, we can utilize the fact. That
Did they
we've got,
say that lab enchants are gone, or they moved
that
to
actually
the new
makes,
device?
There's some cases where we can make the click to move stuff look more natural as well.
They're gone?
It's kind of minor stuff, but like, you know.
So even boot enchants?
Click to move too due to that.
And what sort of skills can you use while moving? That was mentioned that some will be kind of like functional in that way.
Yeah, so we're still like going through and thinking exactly what we want to do there. But the basic thing is that you definitely want to have, I think, for each build, a few skills that you can use in that way, because it does make combat feel faster when you can kind of be doing stuff on the way to the next monster, this kind of thing. It just kind of improves it in a way that once we tried it, we were just like, wow, that's actually really cool.
Am I the only one that's not that
it won't be,
interested in
everything,
PoE
like, a lot of the
2
time,
yet?
What we're doing is
I don't really give a
getting
fuck.
the,
This shit's coming out next
we can
week.
Shorten the windows because we've got this ability now. We can kind of shorten the windows where you're
It's
not
too
allowed
far
to
away.
do
I don't give a fuck yet.
And skills as well. So like only like right near the contact point, do you actually have to stop. And then for other skills, we can.
I want to see all that shit they said, dude.
Some of the skills that you might want
Still
to
going Bone Shatter? I don't know.
So I'm not gonna like give you a list or anything.
It's probably gonna be good at Ultimatum because it's so tanky. Ultimatum, if you remember correctly, is pretty brutal.
Skills that incorporate more movement or even play with the lack of movement, like planting your feet.
I didn't look at the Atlas enough. I want to see where the nodes are for it. Like, does it complement Expedition?
Another question people have asked is like, how does it work?
Yeah.
When you using click to move? And the answer
Look
is
out,
honestly pretty
Corrupting
simple. Like,
Cry.
you
You
want to move,
can
and then you
even
move mouse
use the double loot node.
and use the skill in the other direction.
I don't
and
really
your
know what
character
that
will
means.
Not be interrupted the move. They'll just keep moving while you shoot in the other direction. That does work. Like, it is technically like, I mean,
Ultimatum was left side.
Movement to be able to do it if you able to move while you're doing it, but it does
Probably
work.
have to
So
use
there's
a
no
gateway.
disadvantage there other than just. I mean, effectively, what you're doing is it's like what the same exact motion you do if you're stutter stepping, except that you're
It's replacing Metamorph. Metamorph is
So you
gone.
effectively like queue up a move command.
They're
and
getting
fire
rid
it
of
in direction or
Metamorph?
something.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you find that this is
Weird.
what's that?
Good.
saying it's
Fucking
like lower
rip
MP
bozo.
stepping.
Do you find that this is like opening up a lot new design space for you with skills then? Because this is like a new way of thinking that you haven't really had access to in terms of skill design now.
For sure, there's definitely a lot of stuff like we haven't even really.
You get catalysts from somewhere else. Labyrinth.
We would like to yet. Like, there's a lot of stuff to change here and kind of get. And
Hey,
implement this
thanks.
more. But yeah, as I said, once we tried it, it's just like, yeah, we need.
Thanks,
to,
everyone.
We need to be exploring this all throughout what we're doing and making sure that we can.
They're
take
still
advantage
talking
of
about
as much
PoE
as
2.
possible when you've got like direct character control like that.
What we're finding here is the overarching goal with the new characters in Path of Exile 2 is that each one plays entirely differently. We're releasing 12 games in one, where you can play an entirely different style with each
12 games in one.
Now that you've tried a Mercenary, you want to try another one, for example.
Hey, how many games is Tekken 8 gonna be in one?
This team is pioneering new things like the WSD controls, using a class as an example. Like the Mercenary is the canonical WSD control one because of the crossbow stuff feeling like a gun. And then the fallout from that, of course, is then it benefits all the other 11 classes and millions of different playstyles, and that kind of falls through afterwards, and we get time to experiment with how it actually works on those classes.
Yeah,
PoE 1. Everyone in the chat keeps saying PoE 1.
Just reveals that like the melee stuff is getting a lot more fluid with a lot more movement and stuff like that.
PoE
A lot of that is
1,
kinda
dude.
Pre-scripted, but
PoE
modifiable
1.
movement after the fact, where you could like whirl and then change direction a little bit like that. But it seems like now even you might even be able to have things like where your character's able to do a cleave. while
PoE
taking a couple
1.
extra steps. Just little
Buff
things like
melee.
that. So this seems like it's going to change gameplay a lot from Path of Exile.
I just saw one of you assholes over there saying PoE 1 and put a Via
I would want it
face.
so that every skill you can just do it while moving arbitrarily. It needs to still feel like,
PoE 1.
like there's at least some amount of the animation where you're kind of like
Give it up.
into that little bit. So
Uh-oh, there they all are. Hey, don't get me in trouble.
And then
Don't get me in
really
trouble,
after
bitch.
The slash, but the actual slash itself.
PoE 1, dude. I'm gonna do it too then if you
got
guys are
something
gonna
going on
do
there,
it.
Otherwise, it'll just feel like you can't
Chat
really
rules.
exist. You're just like
PoE
floating around,
1.
not really doing anything.
PoE 1, dude.
Vague, but effectively, I just want to avoid the kind of feeling where where you don't feel like you're a real character in the world, which you.
All right, that's enough. I don't want to get banned, dude. I already make fun of his winking. Be cool.
It would feel real.
It's just that PoE 2 is sleeping face.
You know,
Until like when it's gonna come out.
You have to really look at the feel of every single skill and kind of get the timing windows exactly right for everything to be able to make it actually feel really
PoE
solid and
1.
good. Yeah, if we're doing our job right, then every class should have quite a distinct feel as far as all that stuff goes.
Like,
all right, quit
like,
fucking
once you
around.
have more movement. That's when you can start playing with like, okay, in what situations do we stop movement? Like I noticed with the crossbow, for example.
Man, Chris Wilson looks so pissed.
And that made that look and feel a lot more impactful. So that the guy designed that.
Exactly.
Oh no!
Then let's talk a bit about the crossbows. It seems that they've changed quite a bit since the.
Chris Wilson looks so pissed.
Armor piercing bolts and whatnot.
Guys,
that was that meme.
Be cool.
They're applicable, hopefully. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the split to all of the classes happened after that
PoE 1.
last reveal. And so then we were kind of like, we need to make sure that we're making. I didn't. Even like there were like the mechanical ideas of like having ammos and stuff like that for the crossbows before, but I don't think we'd quite yet nailed the kind of like how is a crossbow actually going
PoE 7.
And it wasn't until
PoE 1
the observation that hey, you know, like if you pull the trigger on a crossbow, it needs to fire instantly. We should be putting the contact point literally at 0 on the animation. So this is a bit of a technical term, like contact point just
technical terms,
etc. etc. You know, we need to move that right to the start. And if we do
hey,
that,
thanks, man. Thanks, everyone. I didn't think I will.
We actually found there was like a grab
I'm
bag,
carefully
like,
listening
like
to what
bag
this
that
guy's
you
saying. Huh?
But off topic, but it's like the amount of broken
F
that the mercenary brought to the.
It's PoE 2 and effing
so high. Like the amount of things like that we had to fix in order to make the mercenary work in the engine was just ridiculous. Like I found so many bugs. I mean, these are all going to be fixed, by the way, in PoE 1 as well because the engine is shared. But it's like
what?
I found out that projectiles like disappear a frame before they arrive at the destination, and they appear 1 frame late after they leave your character.
Dude, Chris Wilson
all objects when they
is pissed.
33 milliseconds late from when they actually render. And like there was stuff with trail. I mean, like it was actually like because like when you're dealing with something like this, like if you've got like a bullet effectively traveling ultra fast, it has to happen instantly as soon as you click, and like all these things. There was like so many engine things.
Squeezing that microphone.
Up, and like the engines just started breaking all over. So yeah, there was a lot of there was a lot of technical improvements that had
PoE 1
make that stuff work. Not to even mention the whole like WSD and all the animation system stuff, and yeah, like it was pretty crazy. So I'm really glad to remove a lot of jank that existed that we hadn't noticed before because things weren't fast enough to see the problems. You know, there was a lot of like frame by framing it and like making sure that every single frame is perfect and all sort of stuff going on. And yeah, it was pretty crazy during the development of this stuff.
I love how that pans out in terms of improvements.
Sure.
So on the crossbows, I noticed that they have the new like skill bound to the weapon thing where they fire differently. So you have your shotgun crossbow and you have your semi-automatic crossbow or whatever. Are we mostly going to be modifying those primary skills, or are there going to be other primary separate skills or just kind of more ammo types that modify the base skills?
So there's definitely going to be more ammo types. There will be other skills.
The website says alternate quality gems, labyrinth, helmet enchants, and unique threshold jewels have been combined into a new system called Transfigured Gems.
But they have support gems and
everything. How the fuck does a labyrinth? What does that mean? Where do you put the gem?
Isn't related to one of those primary types.
Excuse me.
That'll be where that can go. And so there's way more than what we even showed there. Like we just showed like some grenades, but there's all sorts of other quirky types.
So you take a gem and it gets the lab enchant on the gem. Oh, does that mean you can have 10 lab enchants? Like, could I get a lab enchant for reservation efficiency and for 2 additional projectiles and for additional damage and everything?
There's still the what do you call them?
What?
Oh god, the crossbows that pop up when you you summon ballista.
Reservation efficiency for every aura you're using.
Like various other skills. So there's definitely other skills.
That sounds dope.
But we kind of ran out of like time to be able to show like all the different things that you can do.
Fuck lab.
And,
I want them to make lab way more valuable to run.
With, for sure, as well. So don't worry about that.
Which it seems like they might have.
Become crossbow skills. Is it going to be shared across the two?
There are certainly some concepts that we might. I mean, look, when we're designing the classes, we're kind of like we do look at pair we want to be like, is there anything here that we want to crib from, to kind of to use? And there might have been a couple of things that we've like sort of used as concepts, but overall it is supposed to be
PoE1.
Like this is distinct, and I'm sure maybe there'll be a time where like this is better suited as a crossbow skill than a bow skill, but in general, I guess like. We're looking at designing things like like this is a full new game. Like we're designing skills again. Like there will be cases where we go back and we're like, hey, this PoE1 skill is still great. Let's port it over. But in almost all cases, the skills get changed a lot. Like I mean, when you saw the sorceress when we announced all the stuff there, it's like yeah, there were skills from PoE1, but like the changes to them were such that like they don't really feel the same at all. So it's they kind of end up quite different.
Yeah, I feel like I remember something like a melee skill.
Chris Wilson being pissed is pretty funny.
Stuff can happen.
Yeah. So are the crossbows exclusive to the Mercenary, or are they something anyone can use?
I mean, just like anything in PoE, everyone can always use everything. I mean, we obviously, when we're showing stuff, we sort of show it as if, like, this is a thing restricted to this class, something, but it isn't, of course. Yeah. Like, you can use it anywhere. And one thing we definitely try to do is make sure that there are keywords that are usable between the classes to make sure, like, even if we don't know exactly how that'll be useful, like that they can lead to things that can be interesting. So for example, on the crossbow there, we had armor break being used, which is the same mechanic we were using on the warrior.
I like that tree stump mechanic where armor turns to evasion.
Mace build. I don't know how that would
What about that keystone?
Like, by having the shared keywords across different classes, it just means that if someone wants to come up with something weird, they can do that. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for the subs.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to do armor piercing bolt, crossbow,
iron reflexes. Yeah. What?
Always correct.
What?
It's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably
Hello?
Actually is
That's them.
I bet it's actually like real, bro.
It is right.
That's them.
With it seems like Discord died for the stream a little bit there. Sorry, Jonathan. What did you say? Mark, what did you say you were going to do?
Oh, it's using armor piercing bolts to get armor break from a distance, and then using Sunder on the.
New Zealand is not down under, is it?
Because Sunder gets
down under is Australia.
If the target's armor broken, so. When we showed the warrior, you have to use armor break, which is, I guess.
I mean, I understand that it's like around there, but is it like considered down under?
From a distance,
because I never heard anyone call it down under. I thought you'd call it down. You call Australia down under.
See some hybrid melee ranged. It's a great playstyle.
It can happen.
Especially for the Mercenary, I feel it'd be a great fit. But moving on a little bit, we've got the oil grenade, and that effectively showed some actions. Like
oil grenade, dude,
on fire. Is that something you might expand to with other skills, enemy abilities, or even like combat areas? Like, here's an oil barrel.
PoE1.
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely
PoE1,
stuff,
dude.
like the environmental stuff. But I mean, even with the other skills we're designing, like I mean, things like the volcano interaction with the druid. That's another example of that kind of like place a thing in the world, and then you can do something with it.
Man, they showed so much cool stuff, and they're making us wait for it.
I absolutely want to be doing more of that. I mean,
this game's not coming out forever.
You can add to get a bit technical about it, to the world where it's like placing a thing like all that stuff allows you to do more setting up for something you're going to do afterwards, which I think is a big part of being able to do combos and things like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff.
You can highlight comments in that chat.
To give a couple examples,
I don't know how that works, but people are redeeming highlighted comments for some. I don't know how that works, but they usually say PoE1.
More of an alchemist monster, and it throws two types of, I guess, flasks or concoctions, and one creates ground type A and one creates ground type B, and if they mix, they end up creating a new type of ground type and exploding and doing massive AoE damage. Like just
double ground type.
Coming up with a whole alchemy system for your environmental interactions.
It's got. We tried it in Heist. Surprise! I don't know if anyone even PoE1 notices this, but there is oil there that does catch on fire. It just doesn't look anywhere near as good.
Thanks, Chadias. Thanks, everyone. I'll thank all of you one at a time with my mouth.
PoE2 is just allowing things to look incredible.
Just trying to read.
Similarly,
I
we're
mean,
seeing
listen.
like more and more powerful control and utility effects. Like for example, in this clip, we saw the shots placing ice walls.
Maybe I should
and
just do it
they were,
now.
like, blocking and taunting enemies. I noticed.
Hey, could you guys like
keep these sorts of effects like feeling?
What do you think? Should I thank during PoE2 talk?
Breaking the fight or trivializing?
Catch up a little?
I mean, on some level, like we have.
Yeah? Alright, cool. Thanks Chadias and Yarcia and Dr. Hugs and Evading Tax Fraud and Mad Baldson. And thanks,
It's funny because a lot of talk to them, like, hey, we
such a
love this, and they go,
stupid
"Oh my
name.
God, that's, like,
Thanks,
crazy because, you know, like,
it's
this
such a
is way
stupid
too
name. I
easy."
hate that I'm
And
even
Michael
smiling
it's
at
not
it.
that broken.
Thanks Cross Contour. Thanks Aunt Ben versus Mama John Part 6. Jive Jive Knight and the Wrestler, Spooky Tater and Granular whatever. And Irish Sunglasses and DS Demo and Eco and Shioro. Thanks Bassomatic. Hey Valdezi, thanks for the tier 3. Thanks Acid Jesus and Lowrider and Nick Fan and Poro Hub and Very Busy, Keendo and Gentai and Psycho Toaster and Broken Dick Bone. Thanks Aliens Are Gay and Flying V. Thanks for the 10 gifted subs. Batman 305. Thanks Bangin' Your Mom and Cat Bag and maybe anyone I missed. Drops are enabled? Not that I know of, unless they automatically enable. Do they?
Like monster size means that we can say, okay, like
I don't think so.
This happens to large monsters. I mean, it all makes some kind of physical sense on some level. You know, the bigger monsters can have.
They are enabled?
That happen, and that can kind of
Cool. I didn't set it up.
Does this give you Mark some interesting tools to play with when designing bosses?
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, generally, yes.
Yeah, I just got notified of a drop. Cool. I didn't do it, so it must be unrelated to my... The only reason I never did it is because I never wanted to learn how, and now that I don't have to, you can have those wings on the house.
Real life is quite important to me, and it makes the game feel just way more grounded. Like you're actually in there, and it makes sense.
Are they still talking about PoE2?
About the Mercenary as well. I know this is tangential, but I'll just get into it. Like, when I don't know if people notice, but when you fire at a monster on the ground, like that area had babies in it, the crossbow aims down and shoots down.
Yes,
like
that was a change that was also absolutely needed.
Whereas in PoE1 and like if there's a little like the little insects, for example, down there, you'll fire your bow and the arrow will just go this and hit it, and it's like it doesn't feel right. Now you may wonder, okay, well, how can it pierce if it aims down? And the answer is it can't. But
I mean, it does a bit because like you still get
sure it goes through and then hits the ground, but like. It does change the gameplay in an interesting way, but it also makes it feel way more realistic, and you're not just like.
Who cares about realistic?
One thing you didn't see in the demo, but actually, like now the collision geometry for everything is actually modeled correctly to to everything, even the stuff outside the gameplay space. So you can fire a grenade out over the buildings and like it'll hit the roofs and like bounce down on the roofs and like go down to the lower story and that sort of stuff. Like
sweet.
It actually has like all of that physics all working and everything.
Even those problems in PoE1 with like leap slam, where you leap slam off like over a ravine, your character will go down, up, down.
Yeah.
No more of that. No more.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
There's a lot of physical stuff. In fact, like and also just things like arrows hit like, in space and like stuff like that. Like now they all exactly hit the geometry and like there's lots of.
What happens to my Metamorph tab? Good question. Refund?
Like we were like, okay, we can no longer tolerate all of this like not physical stuff anymore. We have to actually make it right. So yeah, there was a big.
Good question.
And it makes just everything feel a lot more realistic.
I just bought a Metamorph tab yesterday for the new league. Oh, it turns into an Ultimatum tab? But there is nothing to tab.
I like how it affects the monsters too, because instead of just shooting at a wall when you're up on an elevation,
are they still talking about PoE2, dude?
Backwards to try and get a line of sight to you.
No, they aren't. Are they?
Which is
because they take into account height in the pathfinding now, so they actually.
The hell is taking them so long?
Up a cliff and this kind of thing. There's some pretty interesting things.
Wow, very cool.
Excuse me.
So for demonstrations and things like demos and stuff, you're obviously going to be showing off as many different abilities and combos and stuff like that as possible, like more than you typically have on an actual character. But I'm curious then, kind of what are your expectations or hopes for PoE 2 in terms of how many skills and combos a well-refined character build is going to be running?
PoE 1.
I mean, I personally believe that you should have probably 2 or 3.
PoE 1.
2 is going to be very common. I think 3 will be pretty common as well in terms of like core combos for your character. And then depending on the context, like what's going on with the boss fight or just the monsters, you'll decide to do one or the other. But what I quite like about the way the gameplay is and what we try to strive for is like you've got some plan in mind for what you're doing, but like no plan survives contact with the enemy kind of thing, and like the enemies are doing things that's kind of disrupting that, and then you're like, oh, I should need to use the skill to kind of like deal with that. And so that a lot of the time you can have like I think you saw this on the druid as well. It's like the entire.
I think I might try Ultimatum.
For the entire set
League
of skills.
Star, why not?
But in reality, when you're playing, it's like you can't kind of get off.
That sounds cool.
All the time. You need
Maybe
to,
I'll do
sometimes you can, and then you get
Expedition and Ultimatum,
individual subparts,
and I'll use the Gateway.
Multiple parts of it still work together. And so you
I
can
think
still
I'm gonna probably do Betrayal as well because unveils are so good. If I use Bone Shatter Juggernaut, I might. I don't know. What are you guys thinking? Bone Shatter Jug will probably be really good with the new Ascendancies as well.
Interesting combos going
But there could be other things that are really good, and they could have nerfed it. Patch notes.
Like that is, I guess, the sort of key element of that. And in order to achieve that, you're going to want to have like a few different options on your character to take care of different situations.
PoE 1, hurry up.
Before we move on to some Path of Exile 1 and Affliction questions, we have just a couple more chat questions to ask.
Oh my god.
Do you need to spend all the crossbow ammo to reload, or can you reload manually as well? Is there like a hotkey or something for that?
Yeah, you can reload manually. So effectively, if you use the ammo skill again, it'll reload the thing. So yeah, there is a reload.
Great. Will Path of Exile 2 be cross-platform at all?
Yes, it will be. Absolutely.
Whoa.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Will boss and monster balancing be done around WASD?
What about PoE 1?
Or will be keeping mouse movement players in mind as well?
I mean, we're always going to make sure that it's okay for both type of players, but I wouldn't say that the balancing has to be hugely different, honestly.
Talk about PoE 1.
Especially with the dodge roll and everything, you can get where you need to go with click to move as well. It's just that the immediacy of WASD just sort of feels better.
Oh, God.
You know, like, I think that it's necessarily a huge balancing task there, but maybe Mark, you've got to...
Froze for a second.
It's Ultimatum.
Thanks, Ameri, Inactive, Aggressive, and Chadias.
To give a real...
I'm glad I
example,
thanked
it's like when you,
and caught up.
When you click to move, you pathfind, right? And with WASD, it's...
It is technically pathfinding a little bit, but
a bit less, and so like you're more likely to run into a... where if you were to click around something, your character would path around it, but if there was like a point, your character might run into that and get stuck because you actually have to navigate around yourself.
It does pathfind on WASD though.
Yes, but there's a couple cases like that, but that's not really balance. It's more like we have to. I mean, yeah, you're running into a dead end.
I would say though that, like, for example, the bag. I don't know what the name of the monster we eventually went with, but the bag ladies.
These two nerds, dude. Come on, man. That shit's like 2 years away. When's the beta test for this game?
Things like that, like, are a little
2024 for a beta test?
You're less inclined to. You have to move the mouse to the other side.
Oh, June? Alright, that's not that bad. That's like in 7 months.
Like, you get a bit more control.
This shit comes out in 7 days.
Ultimately,
how am I supposed to give a fuck about something in 7 months?
Change balance-wise.
Right.
Well, pretty much.
So will we be seeing a bit more from PoE 2 between now and the beta?
PoE 7.
Of course, well, I mean, at the very least, there'll be, the next League live stream and everything. We'll definitely want to have some stuff to show then. But as we get towards the beta, we're going to be showing a heck of a lot more. And I also want to make sure that we get, like, I want to do a deep dive.
Please don't.
Character class, so we can sort of see, like, what to expect. I think there are also good references for the type of game.
Thanks, Talarox, and thanks, Lord Umbasa.
Class, like, what class do I want to pick? Being able to see what type of gameplay you can expect.
I should have that 10-year badge pretty soon.
For all the classes, if we can.
I hope.
Yeah.
Great, and you have a lot of classes now, the deep dive, so that's a lot of content.
We do.
Great. Alright, so moving on to Path of Exile 1 and Affliction first. So Affliction looks like you're kind of walking through a carpet of cockroaches with a candle to scare them off. Do you guys ever worry when you design a League mechanic like this that you're going to be just scaring some players off? They're just going to nope out because of that?
No, it is a horror game, and there's a lot of horror in there already. We've had a few examples though, like just to give a small anecdote of. There was, I think, it was the last, or maybe the current, the mystery box that has the spider portal in it.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had people like specifically go, I don't want to buy this mystery box because I have arachnophobia and I don't want to get that spider.
Oh my god.
The way I can get everything but the spider from it. And the short answer is no. But like, I mean, how does that person kill Weaver or get through?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. But no, generally, like the game has a lot of horrific stuff in it, and as you can even see from what's going on in that Mercenary demo, you know,
Kill you one.
Pulling up punches when it comes to that stuff for sure.
Hurry up.
I remember Eric came across a list of things not to include in games because they scare the players. Things like objects that are too sharp and pointy, or trypophobia triggering clusters of small irregular holes. And he's like, "This is very useful."
Designed by
these.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Dev phobia.
So, talking about mechanics, the wisps that allow you to explore the Wildwood are somewhat of a limited resource, it seems. Is this a timer, or is it a distance traveled, some kind of mechanic like that?
I think I got that too.
It's distance traveled, but it's.
I think I got that too.
Into the bugs and the
Damn
cockroaches.
devs.
Yep. So it's how much of that you can purge away. So if you run back on a path you've already been, like let's say you run up some way and then you want to go back and then go a different direction, like running back where you've been doesn't use the resource, but running anywhere new does.
Cool.
I think that'll be a popular decision instead of it being like, say, a hard timer.
Yeah, for sure.
So how long is a venture into the Wildwood typically? Like how long are you like exiting your map?
Well, even typical is somehow subjective here, but obviously it depends on your character. But I mean,
Thank you.
I would expect most people to be in there like kind of a minute, upwards of 2 minutes.
Holy shit!
If you run into a boss fight, it can, it can be a while.
It does depend
minutes,
but like, I mean, you could be in there as short as 30 seconds, or a lot less if you're, just not really caring where you're going. But that is not the right tactic to have at all.
And there isn't time pressure here at any way. You could be in there for a quarter of an hour if you're just incredibly methodical and barely move.
A quarter of an hour.
You can.
Who calls it that?
Players who don't like the gotta go fast thing. Like, you can go fast. It's more efficient to go fast, but you don't have to.
I wanted, sorry, I wanted something that was normalized a bit more.
New Zealanders, I would go there.
You can do it at your own
Lord of
pace,
the Rings
as
is
opposed to
cool.
feeling like ultra stressed, and a faster player can do it as fast as they want, and that's still fine.
Yeah, I bet it's cool. I've heard great
Excellent.
things.
So you get these wisps, and you free them. They go into your map, and they infect monsters, and you make them drop more loot. Are they like more likely to choose more powerful enemies like rares and bosses, or is it just fully random?
They are more likely to pick, bosses and rares or higher rarity monsters going down. Yes.
And otherwise,
Suspicious.
there would have been a chance for multiple wisp types to go into one monster, right? So we had to make it so that it was relatively likely for that to occur, but it doesn't always happen. It's kind of it's very.
As a typical Path of Exile player, I immediately thought of abuse cases for this. Can you like kill all the monsters in a map except the boss, and then just go in and come out, and then bring the wisp into the boss only, stacking it up?
Thankfully, as we're also PoE players, we have also thought of this. We don't think of everything, but at least in that case, no, it is a chance per monster. So if you clear the whole map and then go and do it, the resultant is, it's actually detrimental for you.
And
wow.
the Wildwood always appears at the start of the map. So that means that you always have the chance, that way you get the most, just to make sure that you get the most, what do you call it?
Equity, at the start of every map.
Equity or whatever out of doing it. So
a little like Delirium where the mirror would spawn.
Exactly, it is exactly like that.
Yep.
Great. Wow, you guys have thought of it.
We've done this for a while now.
Some experience.
Yeah.
So some players love mechanics in maps, and others seem to love ones that cause them to take a break from a map. There's definitely some divide there. Interestingly, I noticed that Affliction is a little bit of both. It's a portal, but it juices your map afterwards. How do you folks like to balance the desires of the player base when it comes to designing leagues like this?
Ultimately, we just like to do a bit of all of it. Sometimes it's out of map, sometimes
I'm already
it's in
hungry.
Map, sometimes in this case it's a bit of both. Like there isn't really some, elaborate decision that goes into it. It's just kind of like we feel like it's time for one or the other.
I mean, we definitely have discussions of like, oh, you know, we've done a couple of an area ones, let's do an out of area one. Oh, we've done some out of area ones, let's do an area one. Like, you know, in this case,
I ate lunch. I had
things. So you know, it was good. But
I had a
like,
sandwich, grilled cheese sandwich.
So it's kind of concept, at least, that I use internally, which
and
is
some
what
wheat
shape is in
thins.
combat, and we want to try all the different shapes we can do, and we haven't run out of shapes yet.
This shape technically is whatever shape you want to, because you can run. So it's an undefined shape.
All right.
What?
I have to always look out for my co-op buddies. How does Affliction work in multiplayer?
So once you die, you can't
The
go back.
hard-hitting
Just worth
questions.
noting. Technically, that's multiplayer or single player, but only the map owner can, or if they're not present, I believe it nominates someone else, but I'll make sure that's the case if not, can actually reveal fog or the mist, whatever, the bugs.
Whatever.
And when you collect, so the expectation is the party members kind of follow
The guy who made it calls it
And,
whatever.
the,
However, how am I supposed to know what it's
the
called?
same amount, so they're just a shared pool. Like it
Like
doesn't.
any player who collects wisps will go to the primary.
Oh, Kazami,
So
whatever.
they're all so there's effectively the map owner is the one in charge.
Thanks, Kore.
Exploring basically.
But
And
anyone
Skull
can pick them up,
Divis.
if you want to spread out a little bit like that. So yeah, it
Thanks,
works
Giant
really well,
Robo and
due to the
Medic.
nature of the rewards, just being based on the monsters' drops, they will scale with like party drops like normal. So there's no like, they just work as standard.
Metamorph Stash tab.
Right. And we get this new Ascendancy system as a reward for this, which seems quite significant, especially seeing some of the specific bonuses there. How challenging is it to actually unlock these Wildwood Ascendancies and gain all of their points?
So you can get 8 points per class. You get your first 2 points when you meet the NPCs, which occurs relatively early. I think we have the, and it is slightly RNG based, and whether or not you find them. And but you can increase the chance of finding them by following the trails of wisps. They will lead to them.
So the different colours have different things at the end of the trails, so you can kind of pick which direction you want to go.
And each colour associates
Nice
with
link,
NPC. So I
douchebag.
think if you can start around appearing around Act 2, and then the expectation is by end of Act 5, you've probably found each of them.
Thanks,
once.
Gashapon.
And when you meet them, you get your first 2 points, and then they'll give you a quest if you spec into that class to find more wisps or kill some monsters, like real basic quests. All done within the forest, and then you get your 4th point, and then or 3rd and 4th points, and then you have a quest to kill like a mini boss, and then it'll give you your 5th and 6th, and then the final 2 points are from killing the final boss of the league, which is probably relatively difficult. Like that's a level 83 kind of maybe equivalent to say like Lycia from Sanctum, or not quite pinnacle boss, but like just below it kind of thing. So that will be hard. So you could argue the first 6 points, the first 2 points are very easy. First 6 easier than probably say Labyrinth or the normal Ascendancy equivalent, but the last 2 points will be quite a lot harder than the regular Ascendancy 8 last 2 points.
And this is in parallel / addition to your existing Ascendancy class and its progress. You have 2 classes here to clarify.
Yeah.
2 classes.
Yeah, and that last one that was revealed was like a little bit of everything. pretty cool. Was charms. Yeah. So the unique specters from the Breaker of Oaths, including
what are
bosses
charms?
like the Hydra, was certainly a surprise. Can you have more than one Hydra Spectre, or like an army of bosses?
You can. You can have up to your Spectre limit of Hydras, but they cannot be desecrated. So once you have it, once you have the item, you buy it from him. You can only Spectre it once. Once it dies,
Itemized Ascendancy nodes. Oh yeah.
But yes, it will be hard to find them.
Cool.
You can trade them.
Yes, you can trade for them. I really wanted this whole I wanted you to be able to find the NPC and then be able to effectively buy something from them that could be worth multiple divines. And I'm like, a Hydra could be worth multiple divines. Like, let's see if we can do that.
Note, you can buy these and trade them even if you aren't that class.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
So there's a reason to look at the shop for all of the NPCs, regardless of whether or not you're that Ascendancy class, because other people can use them.
Talk about the fragility of the Hydra.
Yes. Well, it is worth noting the Hydra's health in particular is relatively low. So you do have to keep it alive. The specters in general they're pretty interesting. There's a lot I've tried to go for where we've gone and tried to give stats that other builds wouldn't use. Like there's one, for example, where one of its properties just says your owner, as in the player, has 5% more attack damage or melee attack damage. I can't remember which of those two. And then if you get all your specters, you can get like what 40% more attack damage. But now you're a melee build that's investing in plus specter limit, and there's some interesting weird doing there. And then of course that means you need minion life, otherwise they're all just going to die. And there's hopefully some kind of weird, interesting builds that come out of this, where you have unorthodox builds using specters that you normally wouldn't.
And you had that interesting one with Fire Fury. And
I don't know if I like this whole 3 dads at the same time configuration. I just want one dad to wink.
If you also have a Hellwreck Spectre and the Hellwreck
One dad looking at the camera, no fucking giggling, no jokes.
Kind of because normally when you do play a Spectre build, you stack a lot of the
one bald dad. Damn it.
So there's something going on between the Fire Fury and the Hellwreck. Then they have some backstory together. I guess.
They're empowering each other, yeah, for sure.
They are. Fanfic authors take notice.
Yeah, here we go. New fanfic in progress. The charms for the Wildwood Primalist, they capture random parts of other Ascendancy nodes and allow you to create a new one in kind of like a build your own Ascendancy fashion. What sort of limitations are there? Can you get like any power from any node?
You can't get anything. I can't remember exactly what you can and can't get, but there are some stuff that is like it's binary and ultra powerful, and like that's just too much power to give from a single node like that can have 2 modifiers on it. So you can't get everything, but you can get most things, and even in some cases where they are binary, we've made non-binary versions of that property where it's like either be chance-based or percentage-based, like a portion of it. But they do stack as well, so like for example, you can get the 3 sockets, and obviously you can get like, we showed, say the Occultist Curse Explosion, like if you just want to go all in on the chance of that, you could try and get that on all 3 of them, but again, it's going to be pretty rare, they're unmodifiable, but again, tradable. And I'm expecting going under the philosophy of I want you to be able to find these NPCs and occasionally find something worth a lot. I do want it to be that occasionally you find one and you get multiple divines worth of a trade because you find just the perfect charm.
Cool.
And again, you don't have to be that class to find the charm.
Yes.
That's sick. I like that. Yeah. Casino.
Yeah. The shops should be valuable. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Are there any limitations to this Primalist shouting items at corpses thing? It's like, are people just going to be going around shouting at every corpse for extra loot?
Well, it's one of these interesting... This one's been very controversial, I'll point out, internally. Don't get me wrong. See, for me, I really like it because it's a thing where if you're an efficient... Well, okay, let's think of it a few different ways. Firstly, if you're destroying corpses, it doesn't work, right? There's no body left to get loot from. So you can deal with spiders and or the porcupines and among other things. But
wow.
So
oh, come on! Destroying corpses?
Oh, we had a bit of a...
Yeah, we're back now.
Discord dip there. I'm going to just start that part again. But,
say that again, Pandejo.
Yes, you have
I don't like that these other guys have hair.
That doesn't destroy corpses, meaning of course you have to deal with the porcupine Goliaths. I don't know who heard that before, but whatever. And then the other thing to note is it actually rewards slower players more than faster players because you have to Warcry, which is cooldown based. Are you really going to wait around meticulously Warcrying on every single corpse, or are you just going to move on and kill more monsters and run more maps? And so if you want to get the most out of your map, of course that's a way to do it, but if you want to get most out of your time, that is not the way to do it. So yes, you could like Warcry, bind it to your left click and then just Warcry whenever it's available and get whatever loot you can get.
I reckon opening the chests is the
opening
that's time efficient.
Opening chests is a big time.
That's the main.
You don't reopen a chest though, right?
But it is worth noting, just to get into some specifics of how that works as well. It doesn't care about the monster's quantity and rarity. It does care about map quant and rarity. So a boss is just going to occasionally drop like an item, if that. It doesn't like re-drop all its drops. So it's not like ultra powerful. Due to that, it's probably honestly going to yield a little bit more, like, it's more for like getting a little bit of extra currency than it is getting like unique items and rare items and stuff like that.
Interesting.
I'll ask the obvious question that you knew you'd get when you added a backpack inventory expansion. Do you think you'll give this to people outside of the Primalist?
Short answer, no. But I mean, look, we chuck these in, we experiment for 3 months, and we see. This was also the node of the second highest level of controversy internally.
What's corrupting
we'll
Cry?
Give it a go. We'll see what happens. But like, I do not see that thing returning outside of the Primalists after the league, even if the league happens to go core. You know.
Yeah.
Controversial league design. It sounds like internally. Oof.
Well, they're 3 month experiments essentially.
Yeah, we like to
Well, it
try.
has short
I say
cooldown.
controversy. It's fun.
It's not like there's a shouting match or anything going on.
Thanks, Mineral Wazertop and Never Scry
No.
and Smitten and Gashapon.
We've got some more chat questions on Affliction before we move on to some of the other features. When you went to the Wildwood, do you start at the last place you're at? Is it like a continual exploration, or is it a new area each time?
It's not continuous, no. It is effectively an infinite forest, but you're put in a random place every single time. It's new exploration. It isn't continuous from the previous year.
Weird.
It feels slightly like the idea of Delve without the actual specific.
It isn't really like Delve because it doesn't have the whole like big map or anything like that.
Are the wisps tradable? Or
Chris is winking and pissed.
No, I mean they're tradable to the vendors, but that's not really trading. They're usable as currency for the vendors, but aside from that, no. They are, and between instants, they don't carry over at all. Right?
Really?
Once you leave the Wildwood, they're dispersed, so you don't get to keep them at all. No.
Huh.
And just clarifying for people that missed this detail, you'll be able to use the regular Ascendancy class alongside the Wildwood Ascendancy class. It's extra on top.
You will eventually get 8 points in both. Yes.
Sweet. Can monsters attack from the Fog of War in Affliction, or only once they're fully revealed? Ooh, good question.
You will not get you're both not going to be like given an advantage as a ranged character to shoot into it, and you will not be attacked from it. They will not do similar to Delve Darkness. They will come out of the darkness before they engage with you. And generally, only things you reveal will actually engage with you.
Do map modifiers from the area you
Doesn't look confident
affect the Wildwood, or is it completely separate zone in that regard?
The map mods do affect it, yes. And
oh wow.
Where it doesn't increase
Thanks,
the amount
Alu.
of wisps you get, it does increase the loot you get in general, which multiplicatively applies with the bonuses the wisps give monsters afterwards. So you are obviously to get max rewards like normal, you're incentivized
But
to
pack size works on the monsters in the Wildwood.
Oh yes.
And because pack size works on them, that means you do get more wisps if you increase pack size. Because they're part of the drops of those monsters.
Yeah, there are monsters that have wisps already in them in the forest, and they will give wisps. So yes, pack size will increase the amount of wisps you can get.
Which actually means that pack size can increase the duration that you can stay in the Wildwood, if I understand that correctly.
Different wisps.
Oh, different. All right, because that's the right.
More?
It'll just increase the rewards then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just more rewards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
More
between
rewards.
this and the wisps you're freeing, it sounds like a bit of a map juicing league
More.
then.
That was what I was going for.
Wrong.
I really like things like Delirium where they overlap with all the other leagues.
Yep.
It's worth noting on that point. You might think, okay, the wisps disperse into the air and affect monsters once you exit. It will also affect monsters that are then spawned afterwards. So if you then go and activate a breach, there is like a portion of the breach monsters will be dusted as well, and thus their rewards and difficulty will also be increased. So yeah, it overlaps with any in-area league, I believe, as long as the monster gives loot and experience. Which obviously, if it doesn't, you don't really care about it. So.
This league sounds crap.
Cool.
All right.
That sounds
talking
cool.
about Ultimatum.
Ultimatum dusted.
It has been a long
Cheeto
time.
dust.
Did you face some specific challenges?
Both of these guys have too much hair.
Main challenge, I guess, was finding time to actually do the rebalance and reassess it. But like once we found the time, which we did, we got through all that, and I mean, now it's finally coming back. But yeah, it just comes down to time. We've got so much we always want to do, and just finding the resources to be able to get someone to fully reassess it and make the changes that we want it can be challenging for sure.
So it's not just something you wanted to just slap back in as it was. Then it sounds like it's changed a fair bit.
It's had a substantial amount of work done to it. Like, don't.
What's Ziggy's role here? He's asking the
Obviously,
shitty
it's gonna be very
questions.
different to how it was given the Atlas passives as well, and how you can
Hello?
and change it. Which
What's
is
your role here?
Relatively fun, but taking that into consideration as well.
Same as Ziggy.
That we do.
Asking the shitty questions.
Why do you?
You
think
should
that
take
Ultimatum
his
was
job.
popular
You're perfect
and so
at it.
Requested to return. That was like the number one thing asked about at ExileCon. Is there anything to like learn from that for future league designs?
Well, I think about it, and also
I gotta take a piss, man. It's an hour and 40 minutes.
The mod selection is fun. I like how it works in parties as well. And
I'm taking a fucking break.
My Aurobot addiction.
I can watch this shit on my phone while I take a
on the mods,
piss.
and you go and pick the mod that no one wants just because you want to.
Lightning! Shit.
Or you're an Aurobot and you pick that mod that causes your auras to apply to the enemies.
I'll be back.
Then hopefully your teammate, yeah.
And the double or nothing stuff is also very. I don't want to use the word addictive because that's a bad word these days, but definitely addictive.
Oh, I love that, and I think a lot of people resonate with that as well. Where you when you've got the divine orbs on the line, or the headhunter on the line, or like just whatever items on the line, it's like the thrill is just, you know, it gives you that adrenaline rush that like I almost used to get in hardcore league. You know, when I actually played that a lot more. Rest in peace.
It's risk reward, to put it another way, right? It's good risk reward stuff. Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
I think it had like a unique pacing too, with like intense action break, intense action break.
Oh yeah, for sure. I like that as well a lot. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say too many lessons learned aside from just like, or like, you know, how we can use things in the future. But I guess ultimately the risk reward and the pacing are probably the two biggest ones.
Do you want to talk about what happened with the combat changes to do with rare monsters and stuff in Ultimatum?
Yeah, I think it was around the time there was a lot of there was a bit of like, how do we make this harder that went on, and it ended up just cranking the rare monsters up. Like there was just points where there were like 9 rare of those blood chieftains on your screen, and the problem with that, especially with like obviously now looking at rare modifiers, like the level of visual pollution that adds. And like you can't even tell what's happening. Like there was a lot of going on in that league where there's just a massive crossfire of projectiles and just like a whole bunch of rare monsters, and like so we've gone with almost a more what we call expedition style balance, which is just like tone that down but make each monster individually more difficult and more meaningful. So it should be that it is less like more comprehensible in the moment as to what you're actually fighting and what you're actually doing, and still difficult, as opposed to just like spam everything, like crank up the rare monster number to infinity. But that's mostly I think of what's going on. It's just, which is honestly been working pretty well with respect to our monster balance lately. Right.
So Metamorph is getting removed as a part of this coming back of Ultimatum, with its unique rewards going to Ultimatum. Can you tell me a little bit about that decision, like to remove Metamorph?
There's a few things going on there, but the first is just the visual clarity of it again, going back to that. Like, you put these monsters together, and then it just does this kind of like morphing thing. I mean, look, I've played this a lot, and it transforms into something, and then I'm dead. I'm like, I don't even know what just happened. Like, what killed me here? I actually don't know. And it is meant to be the case that obviously I know what monsters I'm putting in, and I'm putting in this monster, this monster, this monster, and I know these do this skills, and because this one's in the brain slot, it does this big AoE. But the reality is, like, that's way too much to try and know and remember, and like there's hundreds of monsters with hundreds of skills going on there, and it's like you can't really tell. And so when you do put it together, it's like, oh, I like these rewards, and you put those in, and that's ultimately what you do as a player for that. And so you put in a monster, it spawns, and you maybe just insta-die or you maybe not. And getting that right is just pretty impossible, I would say. Like, I love the mechanic in a nutshell of you get to put monsters together to create a new boss fight, but it just wasn't working.
It was never my favorite league visually either. I just don't think it really looks that great.
Oh no, we dropped. I'm sure we'll get things back in just a second here, folks. Welcome back, folks. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We are back.
Discord just decided to self-destruct for some reason and then required a computer reboot to get back in action again.
I think you guys might have made Tane a little mad.
Yeah, Metamorph was a little bit unhappy about being removed, apparently.
So that brings us back to what we were talking about, just about Metamorph's removal, and basically it was a bit of a visual mess and a bit of like a gameplay feedback mess in terms of players not really knowing why they were killed and things like that as well.
Yeah.
And there was actually one other one. I don't know if you want to talk about it or I can, but I think it actually was surprisingly Metamorph was like quite annoying from a maintenance perspective. Like there was quite a lot. Like every time we added a monster, we had to do stuff relating to Metamorph, and like also the way it was originally made was just like a bit annoying. So there was certainly certainly there were a lot of designers who were happy to see it gone as well with regard to just maintenance stuff as well. So
and we're careful before we remove content, right?
Oh sure.
Considered decisions.
Yeah, I mean for sure, but it's like there was certainly a lot of factors there.
One other thing about it, I guess the meta endgame thing where you put together
lightning and shit.
Like, there was that sad thing where because that area was a standalone area, it never got map mods. Like it felt like
they had a technical difficulty screen ready to go.
Underwhelming relative to doing them in the area. I mean, you're less likely to just get insta killed in there at least. So in some ways it did it better and
I had a snack.
Controlled and telegraphed, but in the other sense, it
did you drop your sandwich?
Too easy. Like the thing spawned and then just died within 3 seconds. Often the life wasn't high enough. There's no map mod damage. Like
I had a nice piss and a snack.
It was just due for its removal, honestly.
Yeah, I certainly agree with a lot of issues that Metamorph had and experienced a lot of myself, but I do think there was a good idea there. And like you said, with the boss parts going together, that actually felt like it worked a little bit more. But like you said, it just wasn't quite there. So something to play with in the future, maybe.
Yeah, oh, for sure. The idea is, there is a sound idea there for sure that I'd like to see if we can play around with later and re-envision in some way, hopefully.
Yeah, you get the situation where in order
What about my Metamorph tab?
In order to do all the work to rework it, and if you're doing all that work, you may as well just bring Ultimatum back.
So this does raise a question you haven't had to deal with before, where you've removed a mechanic now that has a premium tab that people have purchased. What is the plan for that?
So that tab, so due to Catalyst moving to Ultimatum and there being the inscribed ultimatums, that tab is just immediately converted to an Ultimatum tab. So it'll have, the Catalyst will now store there, and your inscribed ultimatums will also, I think there's 60 slots for inscribed ultimatums.
Inscribed ultimatums are back.
Buy a new one, it'll automatically transfer over.
Perfect.
Okay, ultimatum tab.
All right. Let me just see if there's any other ultimatum questions. With Metamorph out of the game, will there be another master hideout NPC to replace Tane?
Do not link me to stupid shit, dude. Someone shoot this dumbass.
Currently, no.
All right. Can Ultimatum be blocked?
What the fuck are you thinking, linking me to some stupid VR RE4 shit like that?
Blocked Metamorph has been changed to a new node that blocks Ultimatum.
All right. Cool. We have a bunch of questions about Transfigured Gems. This is a big one, and chat also has a bunch of questions about it too, I can tell. So this new Transfigured Gem system's kind of a big deal. Is this replacing Labyrinth enchantments, alternate qualities, and threshold jewels entirely?
Short answer, yes. It is replacing it. Belt enchants are gone, birth enchants are gone, etc. Which I like in the sense that it reopens, because those were very old designs.
What do you say?
I'm sure the belt enchants came newer, but it does free up a lot of design space to use in the future. And with a lot of the changes to quality and what the gems are doing themselves, like the loss is ultimately inconsequential. So yeah, they're gone.
Lab enchants are gone. Lab runners are dead.
Different transfigurations for each skill, or is there one for each? It seems like so many new gems, effectively.
So, I mean, we're still cranking them out. Like, we're not going to stop until there's a cutoff, effectively, and then we'll probably add them later if we still feel like we have to. But we're aiming for 1 per primary damaging skill minimum, but 2 maximum. So it's 1 to 2 per skill, but auras don't get them, heralds don't get them, utility stuff don't. We're really focusing on your main skills that you are
main skills
primarily
only.
Normally 6 link and whatnot. I mean, I know you can do higher link herald builds, but you know.
That limit of 2 maximum is just in the context of this particular expansion. If it's a popular system, we can make many in the future.
Yeah.
It allows us to, like, so there's this thing where, like, cleave is cleave, and you could change cleave to something. You could change cleave, but now you're ruining the kind of like simple thing it is at level 2. You get it at the game, you just want to cleave stuff. So overcomplicating that to try and make it more interesting and new is honestly not the right answer, and it's kind of a thing that's happened to a lot of skills. So now with this alternate gem system, we get to take those ideas that people have of like how we can be transformative with something like cleave and we get to just add that skill gem without having to compromise that early game experience. And that I think is very, very valuable. And it's, I mean, the possibilities are endless, as I guess I could say, right? Like,
so
that's a good idea.
Transformative with something like Cleave, I'm curious. How do you approach that?
Well, I don't know. Like, I can either talk about what we've actually done or talk about what we could do.
Both.
I mean, something is you could. Well, actually, okay. Let's go with what we have done. I think what we've done with it. There's some details here I might be wrong on, or something that might have changed. But
Thanks, Devil.
I think right now you have to be using a sword and an axe, so 2 different weapons, which is interesting. I believe it also scales. I think it generates rage and scales AOE based on rage. So it's kind of like pushing you to be a rage build. So it's worth noting, like, that might sound more niche, and that is the point, that the alternate gems, or the transfigured gems, are generally more niche. But the power opportunity is much higher as a resultant of that. So they will scale way better into endgame, and it will save us the problem of just having this extreme like power curve of damage and cleave just to try and make it.
Yeah, that's why.
An absurd amount of AOE again. So
are there any other cleave?
I think we've just got the one right now. We experimented with a few others. I think there's one with Impale, but I think we've gone with that on Double Strike now, and like some stuff with Bleeding, but that's gone on something I did. So many. There's the hundreds of these things, and we've gone through so many hundreds of iterations that forgive my memory a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot going on there for sure.
Yeah, Vol alternate
how does this affect Vol gems?
Yeah,
these new versions have
good question.
These new version, well, technically the way it is worked now is just you can have a Val alternate cleave, and that just grants Val cleave, but it doesn't have the same mechanics, so it won't have the rage thing. It like technically the Val skill is a separate ability, and so yes, it can be corrupted to grant that extra ability, but it doesn't have the same properties. No.
Gotcha. Yeah. So are they always going to be just strictly better? Because that cleave version sounds better than regular cleave, or is it sometimes going to be they're just quite different?
It's strictly better if you embrace the niche. Yes.
Right.
If you are investing in rage and speccing into and using the sword and axe, then yes, of course, this is better.
I mean, you can't exactly say that the one that has zombies falling from the sky is strictly better, right? It's just a totally different.
That's great.
I mean, it looks pretty awesome.
It does depend on your definition of better, of course, but I'm talking about like raw clear speed or raw, boss killing speed. Yes, from that measure, like especially with respect to the low level skills, that is often going to be the case if you embrace that build and that kind of more niche build. But yes, again, there are plenty that are like hard to compare. Like the Frostbomb is a good example. Like,
oh boy, New Zealand Wi-Fi
clearing skill as opposed to a more utility focused skill, not having the cooldown, for example. So a lot of them fill different roles, and so they can't really be compared one to one. But yeah,
I mean, it's definitely going to shift the meta a lot. Like just because there's going to be there's a lot of new stuff to try there. So
it's shifting it enough that if people were to ask me what I'm going to play, I actually genuinely have no idea. I honestly am. I don't know. I'll find out in the last day probably. But
is this something?
Yeah, he looks pissed
with utility skills or support gems, things like that as well in the future.
It's a big maybe. Support gems. I haven't really thought about support gem case. I mean,
the thing with support gems is you can just add more support gems, and you don't have to worry about modifying the existing ones really. So
you may as well just add more.
Yeah.
Alternate heralds. It can be done in some cases. Yes, it can be. But we'll see whether or not.
How does this? Oh, it only works with main attack, like main.
It goes from giving buff A to buff B.
It's not like heralds or
wildly different to make
auras or anything. It's just attacks and spells.
Just giving a certain
skill
stat,
gems,
another stat, and that's not really what it's about.
Yeah. What does this mean for Heist in terms of it losing one of its big rewards?
Yeah.
So like specific heists that were
Heist is
heists and whatnot.
Shitty.
So the way, how that works now is that every single tile set just can. So the rewards are no longer bound to the rewards from the display cases at the end.
Yeah.
At the end of the blueprints are no longer bound to the tile set of the base item type of the blueprint. So you can get kind of any of the rewards. You can get replicas.
Did they
from any
take
of them.
away
You can
alternate
get,
quality
alternate
gems?
base types from any of them, or experimented base types, and you can get
Completely?
well, now currency. One thing we did do is buff the currency. Like we did certainly obviously acknowledge losing the gems removes some of the value from running.
Oh, helmet enchants.
Quite a lot of it. So we did do, we buffed the currency just to make it better. So when you do get to the end, you have less like miss cases where you just get like 2 chance orbs. It's like, from completing a blueprint, that's just like completely insufficient. And
you can't get them on the gem because it's not
trying to make chase
possible.
ones, but it's pretty hard to reliably make chase uniques because the meta and the players kind of ultimately control what that is. But we've tried to add more powerful ones. We have rebalanced a number of replica uniques, and we've rebalanced a lot of experimented base types, including trying to emphasize that the jewelry, the amulets and the rings have some very, very powerful alternatives. Honestly, they're probably the best amulet you can get now is an experimented base type amulet, but obviously they're pretty hard to find. And you'd have to craft it, of course.
How hard?
It's 5 new replica uniques, I believe.
Yes, I believe there's 5 new replica uniques, yeah.
And 10 other uniques in this expansion, so 15 new uniques total.
Yeah.
I don't think we made
Thanks, Companda.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
So safe to say, Heist will be something you
Yeah, he's
can
loud.
and then to make sure that the rewards are up to par now after this removal.
I hope so, for sure. I mean, me personally, I'm just excited about those experimented base type amulets and rings. Like before, we had the -1 prefix, +1 suffix, and now you've got like -3 prefix, +3 suffix, and -3 suffix, +3. You know, the invert of that, and like it's like, what kind of ring can you make when you've got 6 prefixes? Is that better? Is that worse? Or like 6 suffixes, and then there's like ones that reduce the amount.
Suffixes.
There's ones that reduce the amount of prefixes but increase the potency of suffixes. And stuff
4
like that.
res.
So,
Stop hearing about this, Mark.
yeah.
I'm like, jeez.
get that facial expression as well when I'm.
It's like, you sure about this?
Yeah.
Jonathan and I have seen the code to handle this stuff, and we're both like, "Ooh, how does?"
No, it's just
It's good.
Nice. I like when seeing devs learn about these things for the first time.
Yeah, there's a way to respect.
There's always
in PoE.
so much going on that it is nearly impossible for everyone to know everything.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So people are obviously pretty excited about the Transfigured gems. They do look quite exciting, and that's a lot of effectively.
Thanks for the
to
drop.
play
You
with.
got
But
it.
It does
Anytime.
kind of raise the question about one of the more controversial decisions with this change is that, the Labyrinth, it has fairly different gameplay than most of Path of Exile. It's got like a lot of environmental hazards and traps and puzzles and a labyrinthian layout, and naturally that's not exactly super wildly popular content for people to run. Not everyone wants to play that. So can you tell me about the decision to make Transfigured Gems specifically a reward for Labyrinth?
Same as
Especially since it looks
Heist.
like something that you'll want to run a lot to get more of them.
Well, few things to talk about here. I mean, the Labyrinth is, I understand. I understand how some people feel about it and people don't, but one thing is, it is core content that you do run through the campaign and you do to Ascend. And we wanted it to be that the Transfigured Gem system is accessible there, as opposed to, like, say, where alternate qualities were in Heist, even though there was a kind of soft mandatory nature of having alternate qualities. And so, well, it was the same problem. I don't want to run Heist, let's say, in a given league, or someone does and someone doesn't, and so you have to trade for them. And so for that case, it's the exact same thing, right? You can trade for these Transfigured Gems, of course. But we've done 2 things as well. So obviously when you get to the end of it, you put your gem in, you can pick from the one of 3 outcomes. It maintains its level and its quality as to what you put in. So the skill doesn't just become worse, at least in that regard. But sometimes there is an option that will transform it directly into its Transfigured counterpart, which means if you don't want to, take the gamble and just keep trying to pick random ones, you can wait for that and convert your, say, Firestorm directly into a Transfigured Firestorm.
Weird.
So that at least will make that a bit easier. But yeah, ultimately, I wanted it to be somewhere where it was introduced early enough, around level 30 is about right, so you're not waiting until end game before you can get these. Like a player can experience.
Damn, lab running.
Get a feel for them, get used to them, and level them up.
Maybe I'll do a
instead of
lab
getting to
runner.
end game and then completely changing their entire build.
Thank you.
Being early enough.
Make a
and
lab
around
running
the
build.
Point where that is like, you know, a good place to commit to that. And also, you're already doing it for your Ascendancy, so it's a good way to introduce the mechanic to those players, as opposed to just kind of putting it somewhere a little bit random and a little bit hidden. So that's the primary motivation.
Path of Exile has a lot of content that is going to vary depending on player taste. You know, some people like Delve, some people don't, and that content has specific rewards, and those rewards are almost always tradable. And so in this case,
this new guy talks a lot.
If you don't like that,
Hey, what's up, new guy?
I'm interested in that idea of like players running into it as a course of their regular gameplay. Does that mean there's a pretty good likelihood then that each time you run like normal crawl and merciless labyrinth and whatnot for the first time, and say you only do them those times, that you're going to actually get a pretty relevant gem reward upgrade each run?
The option is always there. So one of the crafts on the bench is always to convert it to a transfigured gem. So it's not like that one's random. Whether or not you'll get the one you exactly want, obviously isn't reliable, but you will always get, so if you put in, the common one that's put there is if you put in an int gem, you will get a transfigured int gem back. So at least it's likely if you put in a spell, you'll get a spell. And if you don't want to take it, you can just be like, no, I don't want it, and take your gem back, and then try it next time. So it doesn't like force you to. So you can put your primary skill in there, hoping for the best. And if you don't, you can take it back and then just keep playing your build.
Just like an enchant.
If you want, or you can wait till crawl and run it. And it is worth noting that, let's say I know this is a bit later in the game, but the Uber Labyrinth has 2 crafts by default instead of 1 now.
Okay.
So when you get to the end, you get a few more opportunities at doing it, and that's one tactic could be knowing that the easiest labyrinth is the shortest and the easiest to get through, obviously being lower level and shorter. You can, like a high level player, could just go and run that a number of times just to try and get the right transfigured gem. But obviously you won't get a lot of the good crafts and a lot of the good rewards that also come from it. But if that was
this is a new farm.
Your most appropriate transfigured gem, the fastest like that is a tactic you could do. So it's not really meant to be ultra taxing and time consuming to try and get the one you want. But again, as said,
the keys to get into the lab is going to be more valuable then.
That sounds like, from a reward perspective, that it's quite good for both runners and also people just doing it just the once as they go through. So I like the reward sounds of that. But are there any planned changes to running the labyrinth itself or making the labyrinth better in the future?
We went over that a lot, and as a simple, again, going back to, we think of it like this: we could have done that, or we could have added Ultimatum. It's a resourcing problem. Not to say those are the 2 options, but what I'm saying is that it is very, what it needs is a lot of love, and we need the time to do it. So yes, we had a massive list of changes of things we wanted to do, and we just couldn't find the time to do it. So it is something I definitely would love to do later, for sure.
All right, next league, guys. Good, nice, cool. Sounds good.
I was about to joke confirmed, but that's a bit dangerous.
I said it for you. Were we going to see all the gems before launch, the Transfigured gems?
It is our intention to start posting them, yes. As we're still churning through them, I think our plan is to start we'll do a series of posts. I could be wrong.
Bald Madsen? That's the stupidest name I've ever heard. Bald Madsen?
As we then make more.
That's the stupidest joke of the day.
Until the last very possible moment.
Chris Wilson does not rhyme with Bald Madsen.
We just start 200.
Yet, somehow,
get released later or scrapped.
That is funny.
We don't know what the set is going to be currently, and we're just going to keep going till the last minute, getting these in, and yeah, it should be interesting.
All right. For standard players, what's happening to existing quality gems and lab enchant items and stuff like that? They sticking around?
I think the enchants remain.
What?
Old quality gems, I do believe. All of this will be in the patch notes after this, so I might say some stuff, but I do believe alt quality gems just get converted to regular quality, retaining the value.
What?
The quality that is now different because we've changed.
Oh yeah, well that's it's worth noting that the quality on every or almost every single gem, I think the word quality appears 314 times in the patch notes. I believe is what it is.
Whoa.
There has been a substantial quality adjustment to all the skills.
Whoa.
I know this is tangential from the question a little bit, but we're going with a more
Someone got shot.
multiplicative approach there. So instead of like just a lot of gems being 20% increased damage or 10% increased attack speed, we're trying to really look at what is the skill doing. Like if it's something that is about duration, we instead add duration, but instead of doing 20% increased duration, we're adding like +1 or 2 seconds, you know, like or +0.1 per quality kind of thing. So it's meant to be more multiplicative as opposed to increases because there were skills where obviously the more of the increase you have on the passive tree, the worse the quality becomes, or vice versa. So yeah, but this is I think changed with a lot
Ashes of the
skills
Stars
as well,
got buffed.
I think Discharge in particular is one where it's like it has increased area of effect per charge consumed, where that obviously could get it to a massive amount of increased area of effect, which means if you're playing that build, then investing into like a 10% increased area of effect node on the tree is ultimately doing nothing. Like you're going from 200% increase to 210, like it kind of doesn't really matter. But now, so that's been changed to be multiplicative as well. So as we've gone through and done this qualities, we've tried to do that on a lot more gems to make the gem more like about its base stats, and the passive tree is multiplying that as opposed to adding with those stats, which does yield a fairly large amount more power for a lot of skills.
That sounds like a quality change. Love it.
Everyone's gonna get buffed. We're all buffed.
We've run over time, but just a couple more questions before we finish up today. So in the past, it was pretty typical for expansions to come packaged with some pretty substantial changes to skill balance. Obviously, we're getting like a ton of new skills. That's obviously affecting like skill meta and whatnot. But the last few leagues haven't really had much in the way of skill balance, and we're finding like
tomato shot
expectations there. And is that something that you're continuing to like not do, or any thoughts about that?
Again, a lot of it comes down to honestly time, but for this one I really wanted to do something that wasn't just playing that almost cat and mouse game of like upskill A and then next league upskill B to be comparable, and then maybe it goes too far, so then you upskill A again, and if you don't do that, it's just nerf central, right? So where we do that for some extreme cases where we bring them down, I wanted to do something that really wasn't just, you know, let's up cleave by 10% and something else by 10%, and again, noting I don't want to add mechanical complexity to a lot of skills, especially early, because it just makes them more convoluted and confusing. So this was a system that allowed us to not play that game, but yet add thousands and thousands or millions of possible permutations, and we're going to be less hesitant, given time resources, less hesitant to change the balance and change alternate gems or add new ones. So it's given us a system that allows us to do future balance a lot without compromising kind of that core game and that new player experience at all.
It does. It's also like, I mean, the quality changes are a pretty substantial balance change to existing skills. Like that's that is a big thing.
For sure. And a number of skills have changed. Like what we've done is simplified some base skills because we have, and then what we've done is taken what they were doing. So an example of something we're trying to do, I don't actually know if we've done this because so maybe not. I know I probably shouldn't mention things like this, but for example, you get ethereal knives, and it's got all this talk about lingering blades going on. And yeah, most people who play the game in advance know what lingering blades are, but like a new player is not going to know that at all. So ideally we return EK to its former glory of what it was, and then we add an alternate gem that's really emphasizing that lingering blades mechanic and benefiting from that. And then we add another alternate, however many more alternate gems we want to. So it's allowing us to restore some of those, especially lower level gems, to their simplest forms.
Yeah, because when you're leveling up, you don't want it to be too dope.
Rebalance. I think often it's resulting in them being a little bit stronger early, which is going to change a little bit.
Damn, that's crazy.
I like the resultants.
Everything changed.
Not getting overwhelmed with this.
This is a big ass patch.
Information early, and then you get this alternate.
Every skill
really
got changed,
emphasizing that mechanic more, and if you then go down that path, it can become even stronger than it ever was.
But not
if a player is approaching the feedback of there need to be balance changes.
What about like alternate quality
if they feel they're playing
support
the same
gems
builds for a number of leagues in a row, then the Transfigured gem stuff will have fixed that, right? Like every build is now affected by there being multiple different versions of the skill available.
For sure.
There will be, it is going to look entirely different. And it's worth noting, Transfigured Gems came from me sitting down with Mark and saying, the players have an expectation for significant balance changes. The problem is we can't really do any. We've hit the point of like having to make the skills more complicated. What can we do? And Mark suggested Transfigured Gems, which, as Jonathan Blow would say, there was immediately tons of gold on the ground to pick up with that design thing, right? You know, it's not so much cool stuff we can do, and absolutely is going to affect every build in the game.
Yeah.
Great.
Every
So
build in the
conversely,
game.
Talking about Ascendancy changes, last League Chieftain underwent a pretty big overhaul, but its rework seemed to have few fans in the end. It's at around 2% pick rate for most of the league in softcore, although it did gain some fans in hardcore, it seemed at least. What sort of goals do you have for like larger Ascendancy changes like that, and do you feel like the Chieftain hit the mark?
You know, 2%'s not bad, to be honest. It's still, 10 times higher, 20 times higher than what it was. Or maybe even infinitely higher, because I think it was 0.0% for a while. Obviously rounding. But honestly, I would say it didn't quite hit the mark, but like there's a fine line to tread when it comes to Ascendancy balance. Like 2% is probably less of a failure than 25%. Because if everyone's playing it, it's ridiculous. Or we go back to like Slayer Cyclone era where there's 51% or something. You know, I'm going off Pro Ninja numbers, obviously, so high level players. But you know, like that's within a kind of like realm of acceptability. But yes, I would say like in an ideal world, it would have been a little bit better than what it was. So, but geez, it's hard to get that perfectly right, like for sure. But yeah, and obviously if something does get used in hardcore and sees more use there, that is something we like to see, and that's cool. Whether or not it's intentional or accidental, you know, generally it's just the players discovering what's best. Like we don't plan around that kind of thing, but yeah.
Is it something you're gonna continue working on then?
I like Chris way more than these other two
In
guys.
general, trying to get something.
They
right
should get rid of
against
them.
Pre-existing Ascendancies.
Not like completely, not kill them.
Every so often
They should live, but I don't need to see them next
Maybe
time.
we do a like wide sweeping numerical change,
You know?
or maybe we
Send them to McDonald's.
or take one and
Damn, Chris hates them that much.
At the expense of something else, and we just have to weigh those decisions. Like again, there's no time to do that when you have, you know, 100.
Send his ass to McDonald's.
Between there of Transfigured Gems.
That's cold-blooded,
It's the same
dude.
people doing those
McDonald's.
things, so, we just have to make those choices as to what we want to do, and maybe there is a better metagame thing we could be doing, but eventually we're going to circle back to them, and we're going to rebalance them.
All
and
right.
make them, yeah.
And you did add 3 new Ascendancies on this experiment.
Yeah, technically, yes, there are 3 new Ascendancies, yes.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much for spending so much time with us for Q&A today.
That's it.
We did run a bit over time. I appreciate that, and it was a pleasure to talk to you all. Thank you, Chris, Jonathan, and Mark.
Is that really it?
Thank you very much. That gets appreciated.
Thanks.
Well, it's
Thank
great
you.
to talk to you.
And I
Righty.
hope to see some epically crazy builds on release
Dude,
day.
that's like the
Yeah,
biggest
awesome stuff.
update
Thank you very
since
much for watching, folks.
like ages, right? Definitely the biggest update since like they added the 2 new pinnacle bosses, but they didn't add any new pinnacle bosses, right? They didn't add any new like end game things, but they did add this new mechanic, which is in this dark place, and they took out Metamorph but replaced it with Ultimatum, and they reworked Heist and Labyrinth. And now Labyrinth patch notes are up. Yeah, but I can't read, dude. Are you looking at them? I ain't trying to read all that shit. Are you? I'm trying to read all that. That's a lot of shit to read. I'll listen to some fucking nerd read that shit to me on a YouTube video while I'm doing fucking chores and shit. What do you think? I'm not like you? You and I are the same, dude. Is that it? Let me click this shit and look at it. This is the patch notes? Fuck. Is it supposed to be so small? Look at how many times I control plus that. Like 15 times. Table of contents. Woof. Nah. This looks crazy though. Ultimatum changes. God damn! Look how long the ultimatum changes is. Metamorph has been removed. I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this, dude. It's too long. I'm not gonna read all that shit. It's way too many words. What do you guys want to play?